We have started to record the most recent session of MM2003, Reporting and Writing for the Mass Media for the fall semester. It is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. Eventually, we will be looking at roughly about 10 of the blogs in this class, looking at assignment 9, which is civics at the state, national, or international level. The assignment that is technically due today, which is number 10, involving listening posts. And we're also going to be doing some research on assignment 11. That's going to be on the study of civics, citizenship. That's going to be due as a story on Thursday of this week. Let's do some preliminary research on civics before we get into looking at your blogs and what people have done over the past few years for assignment 11. The study of civics, as you can see, involves the study of the rights and delegation of citizens in society. And what I've always done in a class like this is for students to understand the importance of the First Amendments and some of the obligations of citizenship. So as you can see, is civics the same as U.S. government? It's the way you look at your street as either the mayor's or your families. If we just do a basic news search on civics, you can see that different states or nationalities are going to be looking at it in slightly different perspectives. From the Orlando Weekly, the Florida Department of Education considers adding military hero worship to state civics courses. In Wisconsin, there is a legislative spotlight on high school civics. You also have Commonwealth magazine, something also from the state of Wisconsin. Newport, the state of Rhode Island, the governor signs legislation requiring civics proficiency. The other links involve civics proponents urge common ground in battles over ethnic studies, and that's from a group called Californians for Civics Learning. From a national publication, Inside Higher Education, can civics education in colleges strengthen democracy? And we could go on, but let's look into the video feed. For those of you who don't necessarily, during your high school or college career, have had a course in civics, what might it consist of? Here is a video from a website called iCivics. Who we are, with the vision, the mission, the story, and here is a video on reimagining civics education, the study of government.
iCivics is my most important legacy. I want students to learn how the government works and how, in essence, they're part of what makes us function. We're reaching now over 5 million students, over half of U.S. middle school and high school students, and that's great. I want to reach every one of them if I can. I want to see it used as an educational tool for every student in all 50 states.
iCivics teaches about the American democracy and our founding documents through digital tools that include online role-playing games that put students in the action.
You know, iCivics for me as a teacher has been a really great tool to use. I find kids actually getting engaged with learning about branches of government and how processes of government work.
To reach today's students, there's a few things that we need. You need to be able to make the learning personal. You need to be able to give the students a voice. You need to be able to make it fun and interesting.
When they play the games, it's amazing. It makes it come alive.
My favorite game is Win the White House. The version is Do I Have a Right? It's a previous version. Something that learns that Congress can control the taxes. It's fun to learn about the Constitution and stuff. Government doesn't always have to fix your problems. You can fix your own problems as a citizen.
The young people who use it like it.
Let's go forward. Let's build new tools. Let's build new ways to engage our students in civic life.
This is from a website, iCivics, which is, as you can see, reimagining civic education. Now we'll come back to me for just a moment before we continue doing some research on Assignment 11 Civics. Why do I include that in a reporting and writing for the mass media course? Two reasons. One, as a media professional, at some point you are going to be covering government, and it's important to understand how government operates. Keep in mind that Assignment 8 and Assignment 9 both dealt with public records. The first, public records at the local level. Think about the research that we used primarily from Magnolia Reporter. Assignment 9, public records at the state, national, or international level. And Taylor was very creative, as you saw during our last course video, when she's looking at international versions of public records. So for all of you, understanding government, and there is, of course, a required course at Southern Arkansas University, which is political science looking at government, but it's really essential that we do an extra deep dive as media professionals to understand civics, to understand democracy, to understand the importance of citizenship in a country which values the First Amendment and freedom of speech, freedom of press, and assembly. So with that in mind, let's go back to a civics search. We return to the iCivics website and just scroll back. Now, these are many of the civics videos that are taking place around the country. What we saw from iCivics is basically for students before high school, but we also have different ones from around the world. So for instance, in this case, the naturalization interview and test. And it's fascinating because a couple of years ago, we talked about this in a face-to-face setting. Questions were available on the Washington Post website involving the naturalization test. This is literally from last month. Let's watch about a minute of this. The naturalization interview and test.
Hello, and welcome to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. I'm Damian Martinez. U.S. citizenship is one of the most important benefits that the United States offers. Because we understand the value of U.S. citizenship, USCIS has created this video to help you prepare for your naturalization interview. Many applicants ask us questions about what actually takes place during a naturalization interview. We hope to answer some of your questions by showing a series of simulated situations and a description of the process. We made this video because we want to show how the naturalization interview may occur. Please understand that each interview is unique because each individual is unique. Not all naturalization interviews happen in the same way, but with this video, we want to give a general idea of what you should expect. To become a U.S. citizen, you must meet the following requirements at the time you file Form N-400, the application for naturalization. You must be a lawful permanent resident, be 18 years old, have continuous residence in the United States, have physical presence in the United States, have certain time living within the jurisdiction of a USCIS office based on your address, have good moral character, have knowledge of English and U.S. civics, and have attachment to the U.S. Constitution.
Now, those are some of the basics. And whenever I played this video, also, look at the bottom of the screen. It is automatically in closed captioning because it's not unusual for individuals to come in and English is not necessarily their first language. Now, if we go to, let's say, the 10-minute mark, what might some of the questions consist of, or what might the process be for individuals to become citizens? Now, we take it for granted because most of us grew up here. Here's a sample test. Now, let's pick up some of the audio. Not all of it, but maybe a minute.
In most cases, after reviewing the Form N-400, the officer will give you the remaining portions of the naturalization test: the U.S. History and Civics test, the English reading test, and the English writing test. In some USCIS offices, the naturalization test may be given before your interview by an Immigration Services officer. The officer may be the same one that performs your naturalization interview, or it may be a different officer. The U.S. History and Civics test has 10 questions. The History and Civics questions will be asked orally and answered orally. You must get 6 out of the 10 questions correct to pass the History and Civics test.
Now, remember what I said a couple of minutes ago. At one point in a previous course, I went online and showed students some of these 10 questions. For most of us, we would pass with flying colors, but there may be a couple of that you don't understand. Look at the bottom of the screen with the closed captioning. How many U.S. senators are there? There would be 100 because 2 for every 50 states. Where is the Statue of Liberty? That would be New York City. What is the capital of the United States? Washington, D.C. Star-Spangled Banner.
Good. Name one problem that led to the Civil War.
Slavery.
I'm not sure.
That's okay.
Remember that this is just a sample interview. The questions in this video are not necessarily the ones that you will be asked during the test.
Now keep in mind, this is something that for a lot of people who didn't grow up in the United States, there would be a lot of studying for. So let's go to the end and see if there is a happy ending.
Come in for your oath ceremony. Do you have any questions at this point?
No.
Great, then I'll escort you to the customer service area.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The oath ceremony is the final step in becoming a U.S. citizen. After the approval of Form N-400, you will be scheduled for an oath ceremony to take the oath of allegiance. At the ceremony, your lawful permanent resident card will be taken by USCIS, and you will be given a certificate of naturalization. Some USCIS offices may schedule you to participate in a ceremony on the same day of the interview.
The oath is at the bottom of the screen.
After your oath ceremony, you are officially a U.S. citizen and have all the rights and responsibilities that come with this privilege. Naturalized citizens are an important part of our democracy, and USCIS welcomes newly naturalized citizens every day. If you've already applied for naturalization or are considering doing so, we wish you all the best in your journey towards citizenship.
So you get the idea of the process of what it's like to become a citizen. And there is the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website. Notice what it's focusing on right now, because so many Afghans were airlifted out of the country and are now in the United States, including many who are in the state of Arkansas. They've got different languages for Afghans regarding citizenship, immigration. It's very important that those elements be understood in the process of becoming a United States citizen. Now let's go back to all and refresh it, and then go back into the news feed onto a second page. See what different types of elements are taking place in terms of citizenship right now. Civics must be an essential part of any education. That comes from Wisconsin. As you can see, that the Wisconsin State Assembly, there have been a number of links on both of these pages where we've got information regarding civics education in the state of Wisconsin. So we'll see whether or not this leads to a video story itself. It may or may not. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards says nearly all school districts are providing civics education. And if the bill were to become law, they would hope those districts could continue using the same curriculum. When we return to the first page, there we've got a civics education spotlight in Wisconsin. That's still page 2. We also have something from Rhode Island. Let's see what this is all about. This is from last month. I'm checking to see whether any of this becomes a television news story. This is from Rhode Island.
AZ celebrate 150 years of music at the Roger Williams Park Zoo's Jack-O-Lantern Spectacle.
Of course, we have to pay for the privilege. For those of you who know your American history, Roger Williams and Rhode Island are intertwined. And I'm not getting any audio here. Let me try this one more time. We heard the commercial, but not the story. Try it one more time. Still not getting anything. So let's go back to the story from Wisconsin on YouTube.
State Republicans want to create a model civics course and make it a requirement for Wisconsin high schools. That bill already passed the Assembly. It's set next for a vote in the Senate. Naomi Coles talked to civics experts and visited a local classroom to understand what good civics education looks like in Wisconsin today. Naomi?
Yeah, Eric, most high school students in Wisconsin already study civics, but only a few districts study it quite like Middleton does, where students actually become what they're learning instead of just reading about it.
Are there any motions on the floor? I'll get the bill out to everyone. This class helped me not only understand what I believed, but what also all the topics and all the issues that politics covered.
You can find one of Wisconsin's most celebrated civics classes
Motion carried.
right here in Middleton.
But on the first day of class, we really introduce it as you're a member of the legislature, your job starts now.
Today, students debated a bill legalizing the death penalty.
Research the
It failed 18-1.
And now we're at the point in the class where they choose their own topic and start writing their own piece of legislation. And a lot of times that comes from personal experience and things they become really passionate about. And that sparks so many great conversations between the students because they can share, you know, I chose prescription drug costs because I've seen my family struggle with the cost of medication.
Civics education in Wisconsin is in the spotlight. A bill is waiting on a Senate vote that would create the course for high school students and make civics education a high school requirement.
About 70% of students in Wisconsin are already in school districts that require such a course.
UW Dean of Education Diana Hess says she supports a civics requirement.
We're one of the very few states in the country that doesn't.
But she and many educator organizations in the state oppose the GOP-backed bill because they believe lawmakers or any non-civics expert shouldn't be writing or deciding what curriculum is used.
Civics generally gets a bad rap as being really boring. So in a good civics class, students are learning about contemporary, often very controversial, real, authentic political issues, and they're learning how to talk about them with people who agree and disagree.
About campaign
For 10 years in Middleton, following a model first developed by Chicago teachers, that's what happens.
even though it can feel a little risky to put the students in charge and really empower them to take over, that it's so much more rewarding in the end.
This course will culminate in January when 6 teachers and their 11 classes come together for a full legislature, voting on the bills that were written and passed through each classroom.
And that is a story that is based in Wisconsin. We've got Rhode Island. Now let's go to a third page. Now again, this is the news feed, something that you'd probably be looking at. We've got states proclaim October as Civics Awareness Month. We've got Pennsylvania, Oklahoma. Universities can't dodge civics. There's a lot of background information right now on civics in Wisconsin and what is going on with the legislature. Teach more civics in schools. Now, again, that's the importance of being a media professional. You have to understand this because you're going to be reporting on it. There is something from Politico 3 weeks ago. You've got Florida, amazing teacher, how a teacher in Florida is making civics come alive. This is based in Daytona Beach. Something like this could certainly be used for your civic story. Here you've got the teacher who is dressed as King George. That was a photo taken Thursday, October 14th at a middle school in Daytona Beach. It's a welcome break for the 7th graders to hear her put it that way. Sure, they can define sovereignty and consent of the governed, but sometimes it's nice to think of a complicated topic in words that are already familiar to them. And there she is with a tweet, the story itself, more photos, but this is a middle school teacher who is dressed as King George, one of the many costumes she uses in class. So this story is basically along the lines of a feature with a number of photos and at least one tweet showing how civics education is being incorporated. And by the way, look, Haaretz is, this would be an international version of civics. It appears to be civics in civics by the book. So this would be a controversial issue in Israel, and that is from, again, the Haaretz website. Realistically, what we're going to be doing is looking at civics from an American perspective, but as you can see, around the world, sometimes it can be contentious, depending upon who you are and what the country is. And then with a basic search, such as this, scrolling down, there is the iCivics website. Inforum, that would be a newspaper based in Fargo, North Dakota, the Forum of Fargo-Moorhead. COVID and a much-needed civics lesson. The military hero story we talked about a few minutes ago, but different websites that involve civics. And that gives you, I think, a pretty good background as to what you might look for research purposes. As far as 2020 is concerned, what did a couple of your classmates examine? For most of the rest of the fall semester, I'm going to be starting off class by doing some research into upcoming projects, taking a look at what's been done in previous courses, and then transition into what we're currently working on. The first website that I want to show you from last year is the Civics Project Assignment 11 from Abby Johnson. New bipartisan bill plans for $1 billion in civics education. Now, for a number of these, if you want to put up generic graphics, that's certainly acceptable. And notice, the stories aren't necessarily going to be fantastically long. If I like what she does here, or any of you, I can always send it out on social media. It looks as if Abby wrote this in a Word document and uploaded it to the website. Here is the link from Education Week. This is 1 year ago, and I believe this is opening in the same window. Take off the ad, collapse that, and then scroll down. So Dateline, September of last year, a bipartisan bill, eyes for dramatic federal investment. A bipartisan proposal in Congress would dramatically increase the federal government's investment in civics education and would require states to participate in the only gauge of student learning in civics and history every 2 years with a link. And this was a bipartisan proposal from a Democrat and a Republican, has a broad range of support from social studies and civics organizations. Now, most of us in high school or college took courses in political science or history or civics or social studies, basically the same types of things, but trying to understand how government operates, or if you want to look at it from the standpoint of citizenship or new citizens, or taking the naturalization test, as I showed you with a video a few minutes ago, has a broad range of support from social studies and civics organizations, and eyes a much larger role for the feds in this neglected content area. It would authorize $1 billion in all toward the two subjects. So there is the link. There is the website from Education Week, and then we left click back into Abby's story. And the reason that it's very important to include the link is then I can see whenever I'm reading the story how you have decided to rewrite it, because these next few projects that you're working on after we get through the listing posts are going to be reporting, writing, but also editing exercises where you're taking an original source such as Education Week and rewriting it in your own words. And that's what Abby has done here. Let's take a look at her lead sentences. A new bipartisan proposal would not only increase the federal government's investment in civics education, but will also require states to participate in the nation's only gauge of student learning in civics and history every 2 years. And then the next paragraph, quote, the bill was proposed by Representative Rosa DeLauro and Representative Tom Cole, and has already had the support from many social studies and civics organizations. Next, the 3 grants would prioritize districts and providers serving traditionally underserved rural and urban students and English language learners. Now, there is a space here, so I'm assuming this is a new paragraph, and for some reason it's not indented the same way as these are. Keep in mind from a stylistic standpoint, this is what our website looks like. And then what I do is scroll down eventually until I get to assignment 11. Now, if I'm Abby or if I'm a student in this class, I don't necessarily worry about having indentations. I'm just going to go left flush for all of my paragraphs and then quad space down or double space down to indicate a new paragraph. You don't necessarily have to do this in your copy, whatever works for you. It is now up to the legislators and appropriators of the Capitol to decide whether this will be included in an upcoming funding bill. That works for an appropriate civics project. Now, I also have one more from the fall of 2020. This is the website of Mackenzie Turner. In the fall of last year, I was okay with the award-winning mountain landscape, which is what she has. In both cases, they are providing generic graphics, but immediately you notice the difference, because the graphics that are on Mackenzie's website, I can actually click on separately. Where in Abby's case, it's pretty obvious that she included her graphics as part of a Word document and then uploaded it to the website. If you want to do it that way for this class or for a particular project, you can, especially if you haven't taken a blogging class before. Those of you who are majors or taken other classes from me, it's probably a good idea to do as Mackenzie did here, right on the website. Now, before I do anything else, notice the difference in spacing. Mackenzie, as I indicated that Abby could have done with her website, is going left flush all the way to differentiate her paragraphs. She also has a headline, it's your civic duty. Again, Dateline roughly from a year ago. Also, we started because of the pandemic, fall of 2020, much earlier, so these dates are going to be a couple of weeks or more back from what we're doing in fall of 2021. Lead sentences of paragraphs again, quote, as young Americans, we are raised on the idea that growing up is the end all be all. Next paragraph, quote, as a soon-to-be 21-year-old college student, this election year will be the first one I am able to participate in. All of this ties in with civics. All of it ties in with citizenship. And because this was an election year, but in particular, a presidential election year, the concept of civics takes on, for many, greater importance. So what exactly is civic duty? According to the USCIS, remember the video on citizenship that we were looking at with the officer asking questions of the individual who is applying for citizenship came from this particular area. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and I believe it is opening in the same window. And as you can see, the page was not found, but this was last year, so it's okay. There is the Afghan-related information that we looked at earlier. Now let's scroll back to Mackenzie's blog. There are 5 civic duties, and those are provided with a link, even though the page has been changed since this time last year. Next paragraph, quote, lead sentence, the most important of these duties is to participate in the democratic process, to vote. And then she has a long quote that leads to a link. And as you can see, I voted today, 5 reasons why you should vote from September of 2020. Elections have consequences. Not voting is giving up your voice. It's your money. Voting is an opportunity for change. The community depends on you. And anytime you vote, at least in Arkansas, and in many other parts of the country as well, now they're giving out stickers, which I still have after the last 2 presidential elections that I voted. But all of these are very important because elections do have consequences. Last sentence, quote, there are many responsibilities as an American citizen, but contributing to the democratic process reigns supreme, especially in an election year. Go vote. And that is Mackenzie's website whenever you click on it. I strongly encourage you, as we come back to me, to look at what people have done in previous versions of this course, particularly 2019, 2018, 2017, to see how they were doing the same assignments, because what we're doing in this stretch has also been done by students over the past few years. What goes on with civics, voting, citizenship, naturalization, all of those things are going to change. So let's do a Google search one more time and slightly change civics to something else. If you change civics to, let's say, government, and then put civics after it, will there be any changes in the news feed? Because that's where I go if I'm in this class. Florida poised to revamp civics education. This is just posted in the last hour. So from the time that we started class, this is now on the website. Does this lead into a news story? It looks like it does from Miami.
Incomparable design makes it beautiful. State-of-the-art technology.
As always, a word from our sponsor. Hopefully this won't be like the one in Rhode Island where I muted it during the commercial and the audio from the news story didn't come up. Florida poised to revamp civics education. Now your goal, as was the case first with Abby and second with Mackenzie, is to rewrite a story similar to this.
Steeler.
State Attorney General Ashley Moody says the Florida Department of Law Enforcement shut down 3 websites trying to steal your personal information. Moody sent out a consumer alert last week warning Floridians about a new text phishing scam. The texts appear to come from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, and they ask drivers in the state for their personal information to show COVID-19 vaccination status on driver's licenses. Moody said,
well, as you can see, this is a little bit of false advertising because it says revamp civics education, and we're looking at something that is not revamping civics education. It is something else. So let's see if there's anything here that deals with it. And I don't see anything. But there is text for a story related to changes in Florida. Now, we've seen Rhode Island, we've seen Wisconsin, we've seen Florida. Civics education, Flagler is in Florida. WUSF, that would be the University of South Florida. Or USF, that's what I'm thinking. There we get back to Rhode Island. Pennsylvania, we saw that before. Real life election of kid governor teaches nuts and bolts of governor. Hartford Current, Hartford would be in the state of Connecticut. And let's see what this is about. The Hartford Current, one of the oldest newspapers in the United States. As students study civics, real life election of kid governor teaches nuts and bolts of government. So here you have someone in a very big photo elected the kid's governor.
Thanks for choosing to listen. We're converting your article into audio and will begin playing momentarily.
Let's check this out. You can also do this with a Blackboard syllabus downloaded as audio.
Bissell Crosswave X7 Cordless Pet Pro is the multi-surface clean.
It doesn't matter. They're advertisements before everything.
Turbo Pet Mode, it tackles the toughest stuck-on messes. Bissell, live in the moment, not the mess.
As students study civics, real-life election of kid governor teaches nuts and bolts of government. Thousands of Connecticut 5th graders will vote for the state's 7th kid governor in November, deciding which of their peers will be sworn in for a one-year term in January at the Old State House in Hartford. More than 7,500 students across 54 towns are already signed up to participate in the election, said Brian Cofrancesco, the program's leader within the Connecticut Democracy Center, topping the usual total of about 6,000 children annually.
And I hate to do that to you whenever I'm replaying the video directly underneath, which is an advertisement for making homemade cinnamon rolls, which look delightful in the middle of the afternoon as this is being recorded. But you get the idea just from this story that having a kid governor election helps teach the nuts and bolts of government. Now, I can tell you that when I was a senior in high school, there were a number of us that went to the University of Illinois Assembly Hall, now known as State Farm Center, to participate in a mock Democratic primary during a presidential election year. To me, it wouldn't matter if it were a Democratic or Republican event, but in this case, with just like the kid governor situation in Connecticut, being involved in something like that in the state of Illinois as a senior in high school really gives you a greater appreciation of government as a whole. Now remember, when we go back here, anything involving government and civics, you'll find different types of websites, news stories, or videos. And the videos, because we changed the wording, is probably going to change a little bit, but anything that you find, particularly in the news feed, I think would be appropriate for you to examine for assignment 11, civics, which will be due at class time on Thursday. Now let's examine what some of you are working on. I don't have everybody's blog up on the screen. I have roughly about 10. There are a couple of you who indicated because of sickness or because of connectivity issues via the Blackboard app, you had fallen behind. Let me show you some of the websites that involve different types of data for Assignment 10 listing posts. Let's start with those. Let me show you Gwen's website. And Gwen is at Assignment 10, listing posts. And that's what it looks like when you scroll down. She also has included a generic graphic. Wow, we went from cinnamon rolls, which were advertising you could make them homemade with Fleischmann's yeast, which my mom used to do, or now we're going to pizza. I hate to do that to you guys who are watching these after the fact. I would classify a listing post as wherever I am most often. One of these places would be my house because I do not live on campus. There, I gather information from my parents, siblings, and close friends and family who come over. When I am not at home, I am usually at the Baptist Collegiate Ministry. This is where I gather information from my peers and other college students, the BCM, that spend more time on campus than I do. Now we'll just pick and choose, because listing posts are often places where you see the same people and share many of the same information and interests. So at her house, there's going to be different types of information that is shared with her parents or her siblings. At the BCM, it's the same, but we usually have more to talk about because I do not see the same people there every day. Listing posts are also places where you do not have to actively participate in the conversation to gain information about others or events. Now remember, that's why it's called a listing post. Think about your mom, your dad, members of your family. You may not always be talking. You may be listening. And that's why it's important to pick up information as a media professional. What are people talking about? Your parents, as a different age demographic, are going to be probably talking about different issues and events than maybe your peers of college age would. Listening posts are also places where you do not have to actively participate in the conversation to gain information about others or events. For example, you may just be doing homework or relaxing, and you can listen in on someone else's conversation. Let's do our entire final paragraph. Quote, listing posts are places where you gather information about other people or learn of news you had not seen yet. They are great places to get to know others and learn about the world around you in a traditional setting. For others, listing posts can be work, public transportation, church, where they live, or even an online group chat. It is simply the place you gain information through others most often. Now, if I wanted to share that after class, I could send it out on my Facebook page and I could send it out on Twitter. And that's probably, for many of the assignments from now on, after they have been completed, what I would do. Gwen's website, just like we saw with Abby and with Mackenzie. Scroll to listing post. You can go here or go here. And then from top to bottom, she's got 1, 2, 3, 4 compact, well-written paragraphs. Do I hear her voice in that particular post? I most certainly do. Now let's go to someone else who has already completed listing posts. This is the website for Haley. Same as with Gwen, click on read more, and here she's got 1, 2, 3 different graphics. So like Gwen, she wrote it directly on Google Blogger. After learning what listing posts are, I quickly realized I did not relate to them for the most part. Believe it or not, I am a pretty reserved person and don't communicate with a lot of different people. Haley, I can tell you, when I was an undergraduate, I was pretty much the same. I was always taking overloads and really did not have the time to do a lot of listening or hang out with people because I did not go to parties. I did not drink. So in some ways, I was really just focusing on my classes, so I can identify with this. For this assignment, I was puzzled at first. I was unsure of what to write about and how I would relate, but then it clicked. I may not actively engage in listening posts, but I am always surrounded by them. Now keep in mind, other students like Haley are in the same boat. But what about your parents? What are their listening posts? Work, community, church, civic groups, members of your family. One of my main sources of a listening post is my cheer team. During practice, I am quiet for the most part, but as others converse with each other, I cannot help but to tune into some of their conversations. Remember, listening post. And you heard much of this a couple of moments ago from Gwen. By doing this, I am met with a broad range of different forms of local news, personal news, and sometimes even a little bit of gossip. And then she continues on at the end of the paragraph with a lot of my teammates being from different parts of Arkansas or even from out of state. I am able to collect a good variety of news from their hometowns or just by being around them. Diving a bit deeper into my connection with listening posts, I realized how much news I get from my roommate. We grew up together, so it would seem as though we would be updated with the same hometown news, but this is not the case. And she continues on. Before this class, I would not have identified this as a listening post, but now I see just how much news and current information we share between one another. So in this case, not only is the cheer team a listening post, but also her roommate. And isn't it ironic that even though they grew up together, they have different ways to gather news and different life experiences? Next, another way that I absorbed news in the past was through working in the public, specifically a grocery store in Camden, Arkansas. Customers would come in and voluntarily tell me about their personal life or where they are from or where they are going in their hometown. It was often that I did not ask to hear this news or gossip, but I was intrigued by it because it gave me different perspectives on their way of lives and how they live daily, how they view the world currently. As far as diversity and variety, this was the most diverse source of news I'd experienced. And that's very true. When you go to a grocery store or Walmart, you run into a lot of people that you don't necessarily see in your everyday lives. Final paragraph, quote, this topic opened my mind and made me dig deeper for a connection to what I had to write. I would consider myself a morning news type of girl, but when I think beyond that, I realize how many sources and the different places that I get my news from. And as was the case with Gwen, if I liked this, I could send it out on my social media feed directly from Google Blogger. So she's got a generic graphic as the person in the middle listening to everyone else. That would be a listening post. With the cheer team being a listening post and working at a store, as she talked about in Camden, Arkansas. And that is what it looks like when you see her website. Now I'm going to be checking the rest of these while you are continuing to look at her website. And I'm checking, I am updating some of these in real time to see whether or not we've got everything updated to assignment 10. I've got Joanna and I have Alexis who has updated hers. So what I'm going to do for those of you who are watching this video after it's been recorded, I'm going to the website for Alexis right now, and you'll notice that, and Alexis knows this because she updated this during the official recording of class, and I'll go ahead and click on listing posts, and we're all looking at this for the first time. She's got Bussy Hall, and then she's got a generic graphic of folks just sitting around and talking. very similar to what we just heard from Haley in her listening post assignment. So, Alexis, if you'd be kind enough to open up your mic, tell me about your listening posts.
Okay, so my listening post is pretty much just through my dorm at Bussey Hall on campus at SAU. I'm an RA there, and so I get a lot of my information from there, but also like Haley, I get a lot of my information from just my friends and also through my church, like she does with her cheer. But I mentioned Bussey because that's where I am majority of my time because I work there. I have duty night. And I also work the desk. And a lot of my information that I hear, I even gave an example in my on my website about a couple of weeks ago. There was a kid and he was walking around the fairgrounds with a handgun and it went off. The way I actually found out about that was because I was sitting at the desk and a resident came up to me and told me about it because she was there. But I hear a lot of my information, whether that be good information or bad information, or just news like political, pop culture, any type of news, I hear about it usually at the desk at Bussey. I love my job and I like being able to know things through it. And I think that's not just like, I mean, they give me information, but I also give them. So I would say Bussey is probably a listening post for my residents as well as it is for me.
And I would think, Alexis, being a resident assistant, you really have to be a listener to start with because of all of the stories that you get that we would not have access to. But of course, in this case, getting all of that information, such as the fair, you're probably going to have access to it a little bit quicker than everybody else. Now, remember, I'm always your editor as well as your professor. So down here on the bottom, you'll want to double check the listening post spelling. By the way, is this a work in progress? Do you still have more to add or do you feel comfortable with this right here?
I felt comfortable with it, but looking at Haley, she had a lot of information, so I may add some more.
And whenever I do that, understand, for any of you who ever join me live, I am never trying to word count shame you, if that phrase ever exists. But this is why it's so helpful, Alexis, to look at what people have done over the past years or what your classmates are doing right now, because you may come across, oh, she's talking about working at a grocery store. I never thought about that being included. Oh, she is part of the cheer team, but she is rather introverted by her own definition and is just sitting around listening, which is fine because it gives you a better perspective on what people are doing. It's also the reason why I went back to the fall semester of 2018 last week and played, or actually showed you, the material from Colby Clinton, because obviously he was not in Bussey as you are here, but he is at the time a student in the honors dorm, and he and his friend hung around in the honors dorm and would talk about news and talk about information. And I'm guessing, even though you've got many responsibilities as an RA in Bussey Hall, you're probably just by osmosis picking up a lot of stuff on news and information by listening to people, aren't you?
Yes, I am. That's where the majority of my information comes from. I'm quite an extroverted person. So I love to talk to people. That's where I get my energy from. But I never thought about like clubs and organizations being listening posts. I just thought of like where you live, your environment. But I really like that Haley put that in there. I'll probably put I have a ministry here and I'll probably put that in there.
And that's certainly acceptable. But the way that you describe that is certainly appropriate, because whenever we in a social media era find out about things, often in a campus community, we might not necessarily find out about it through our friends as we see here. We might find out about it through social media, and then the social media post from our friends, as we see here, might validate that before we ever find any data, which would be available in the mainstream news feed. But because you were talking about Haley, and we still have to look at what Joanna has for listening posts, let's go back to hers and remind you of what she has. This is the website itself, and then we will click on assignment 10. As I've indicated on many occasions, the reason that it's so helpful to have everything available online and work on your projects at the same time when you can open this into another window and see what your classmates are working on. She had the generic person in the middle, literally listening to many people, the cheer team, and then working at a store. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs of varying lengths. But I think the helpful part of looking at hers and others is that you might not necessarily be as proactive or as outgoing as Alexis indicated that she is. In Haley's case, she had indicated by nature she is relatively reserved, but I would argue that sometimes being reserved, as Haley is, probably makes you a better listener, because you can pick up on so many things, and it is probably equally important in either regard. Now we'll go back to the website for Alexis before we go to Joanna and just remind you of what hers looks like. I've got a lot of windows open, so we'll go back to hers before we move on. And click on this again. Oh, by the way, notice with hers what her website looks like from 10 all the way down to 1. And I like the way that this is set up. It reminds me somewhat of a magazine or mosaic format. Now, this is a little bit different. Let's click on listing post one more time. And is there anything that you'd like to say in conclusion here, Alexis, or are we good?
The only thing I would like to say is I did do this rather quickly. I was a bit confused. I thought we were supposed to do number 9, but I'm overall pretty happy with the result. I still need to edit it a little bit, but I like it overall.
Yeah, and this is fine. I had indicated that I wanted listing posts done by class time today, but at the same time, because this is an online course, and I had also told you that there have been a couple of people off campus who've been having problems with the Blackboard app or just being able to watch any of the videos in Blackboard Ultra when they go there. There's going to be some flexibility when it comes to the assignment. So as long as people don't fall too far behind, it's not going to be that much of a problem. And you can always continually edit these during the semester. I just feel like that's one of the most important things you can get from this course. You might come back and look at this, or Haley, or what Gwen was examining, because she was the first person for number 10 that we looked at. You may come back later on during the semester and think, you know, there's something that I saw someone else do, and I might want to include that, the way that you were giving Haley a shout out. Okay, Alexis, you can go ahead and close your microphone. Thank you. The last project involving a listing post that we are going to look at is Joanna, and we'll put hers up. And she is working on campus listening posts, and she is doing this apparently from Grambling University. Now, I was watching the local news over the weekend from the Shreveport affiliates, and this was something that was very, very relevant, where there are students on the Grambling campus that indicate they're going to classes and then they're staying in their rooms because of some of the shootings that have recently taken place on the Grambling campus. And I don't know what is in this window. Here is her national public record story, also involving Grambling.
In the United States, one person was killed and 7 others injured overnight when gunfire erupted at Grambling State University in North Louisiana. One of the victims is in critical condition, according to Louisiana State Police. 6 others suffered no life-threatening injuries. The shooting happened around 1 a.m. Sunday as the school hosted thousands of visitors in celebration of Homecoming Week, and just 4 days after another deadly shooting on campus. The shooting happened after a fight broke out on campus. It happened outside and was about 100 yards away from where a campus event was taking place. The campus has since been cleared for normal operations following a lockdown.
This is fascinating. She went to an international source to find out information on a shooting at Grambling. I'd love to know what channel this is from. I'll find out about that later. And then she's got local public records, Columbia County jails and bookings, material with the quorum court, and it looks like this is all a work in progress. She's got one of the Dusty Rose fonts that people in past years have used. For the most part, this is something that has been popular in the past. Some people have transitioned into different types of formats, but you can imagine if you're a student at Grambling, and this looks like it's a work in progress, but you can imagine if you're a student at Grambling, what kind of listening post would you be using? Because walking around campus could potentially, in some students' minds, be problematic. As I told you, one of the news stories that I had seen over the weekend, a young lady was interviewed, and she said she was going to her classes and then going back to her room and not taking any chances whatsoever. Same thing here. If I wanted to send this out on a social media platform, I could do it. But that is from a news story in North Louisiana. The other websites that I have up here, and I'll show you just for the record, I was in Introduction to Mass Communication today, checking my video from last week on the website, and I came to Lauren's work that I was watching at the same time I played the video, and we came across her website. So this is where Lauren is right now. She's at Public Records National, and I talked about hers in depth during class the other day. When you click on this story on the Read More, it would eventually lead you to a CNN news report. And this is what she's got for other public records, hometown hard news, all the way down to #1. Keeping in mind that Lauren had to rework this from scratch because she started Google Blogger before Lauren, I should say, she started this before the age of 18, and all of a sudden she had to do these over again because the slate was wiped clean. So that is what Lauren's website looks like as of class time. Some of the other websites that you have not seen yet, let me update this. And I don't know, Kaylee is in Oklahoma. I don't know if she's having an issue with the Blackboard app or not, because she is still on the same assignment that she was for the past week or so on Hometown Featured News. But that's what it looks like in the snapshot format. And I like that if you decide to use it. And of course, in different classes, we've gone through all of those before. We've got Haley, we've got Chris is catching up. Chris is now on assignment 7. So you're taking my advice and getting caught up ASAP. Don't fall too far behind. This is what his website looks like for Campus Hard or Feature News with SAU, and I'm not exactly sure how many assignments he's completed because it's 1, 2, 7, and I'm clicking on Read More, and I'm still looking for 3, 4, 5, and 6. But through the Love and Loyalty campaign, which has raised roughly about $29 million at SAU, these types of devices have been made available, and that's the nursing department. And many nursing departments across the country will have something similar to this. So nursing students can mimic what it is like to take care of any type of a patient in real time. And for many of you, you're going to, as majors, have an extensive listing of websites for courses on Blogger, and that's what Chris's profile looks like. No photo. Now we'll move on. Let me refresh Taylor's, and Taylor is still on number 9. The international version that I was talking about for public records at the beginning of class. I'll leave it there for just a moment. So in Taylor's case, she was looking at Scottish public records. We examined that in detail during the last class period. Public records local, harder feature news, Texas A&M, campus crime, with the allegations of the pledge being found dead at a fraternity party, apparently alcohol related, hometown feature news, hard news, news leads with story links, news leads over a 24-hour period that were breaking news, and of course defining news. And that's what her website looks like roughly halfway through the term. And that will bring us to Seth. Again, I'm not putting everybody's website up on the screen. There are a couple of you who have sent me emails discussing family issues or Blackboard app issues. So I'm going to give you an opportunity, once those situations are straightened out, to get caught up. This is the website for Seth. And I'm just going to scroll down. Initially, public records, feature, crime, feature, Twitter news leads, how I view news. Now let's click on his name, go back up to the top. I don't think we've shared his public records, state, national, or international yet. Those are some of the most wanted international criminals from around the world. And here you've got the names of the individuals from the screenshot. And underneath, what these individuals are alleged to have done and why they are wanted. Let's check out his public records on the local level. I don't know if we ever looked at this. Columbia County jail bookings. And there is a graphic down at the bottom, and he's got a link to the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. And here you have the current inmate roster. 4 pages with 78 inmates. Here you have all of the individuals. This is an important part of public records, making sure that you've got all of this data that you can rewrite if necessary. So you've got a variety of different crimes, including, with this individual, forgery in the first degree. And we'll just do 2 full pages here. Violation of probation, aggravated assault, obstructing government operations, breaking or entering residential burglary, terroristic threatening, aggravated robbery, among others. Now again, this is just the first 2 pages of 4 of the 78. And then finally on the right, fail to appear felony. You've got the bonds, some of them larger, some of them smaller. Now we'll go back up to the top. The Columbia County Sheriff's Office, then we click back 1, click back 2, and you've got some of the jail bookings that Seth decided to look at. Again, very important that all of you understand the importance of the public knowing about what's going on with the allegations of crime and the link in a digital era to any of this. We've looked at Alexis, we've looked at Joanna. The last website we will look at today is Carlin. At the end of class, I have a lot of windows open, but I believe in being thorough. And this is Carlin's website. Public records, state, national, or international. Let's click on the link. The photo obviously is smaller. That's the exact size, but remember, in read more, they get blown up, whatever's at the top. So you've got Mary Kane, a former track prodigy, who's now suing Nike along with her ex-coach for $20 million for emotional abuse at an elite training program. So this information obviously is available with either state or national public records. It was claimed in the lawsuit that Salazar acted with knowledge that severe emotional distress was certain or substantially certain to result from his conduct. Among other things, this situation was first brought to public news in 2019 after Kane mentioned it in a 7-minute video, but at the time it was just under investigation. Nike said, quote, "We don't comment on ongoing litigations. Nike is committed to positively affecting the future of sport for women and girls, and we are doing more in space than ever before." And there is a link to Carlin's story, and as we do with many of you, not everyone today, this is the consistency of everything she has done with her website. But as always, I strongly encourage all of you to always go back into the news stories, check for accuracy in terms of facts, check for spelling accuracy, and as much as possible, provide me a link of the original story for editing purposes. Always try to do that as much as possible. Let's go back to Carlin's story. And yeah, Carlin, do me a favor when you get a chance. Provide me with a link somewhere to the story on the allegations of abuse from the track personality. Before we conclude class 4 today, I want to go back to my website and remind you where you can access videos of this course. I'm going to start at the top of my website and scroll down to this course. Remember, the link to the website and the link to my Twitter account are both available on the syllabus and on Blackboard. But here is my website. And those of you who are majors, long ago, should have bookmarked it. That's what it looks like when you click on it. When you scroll down, eventually you're going to come to MM2003. I have already been within this window, and you can see all of the videos that are alphabetized. And I do it that way, starting with video A. I do it that way so they will be chronological. That was in August, and then we go through the September videos. The still frame video is determined by Google when I upload it. I have no bearing on what video that you see. Those of you who have YouTube channels know that you're usually given an option of a still frame video on the website, but that's not available here on Google. So I've got all of these videos, some of them with my photo or visual, some of them with a screenshot from class or from somebody's website, like right here with Homecoming. That's Joanna's website because we recognize the Dusty Rose. That was from one of the news stories that were played in class Thursday of last week. So all of those are available within the window for reporting and writing for mass media. Here at the top, you've got the syllabus, and then we've got all of the classes from years gone by, different projects that people have done over the years when we did not have blogs. And right here, that's what it looks like. And let me remind you also one more time of my Twitter feed. I'm probably going to send out an example of either Gwen or Haley's assignment 10 listening post because some of you are still working on it. Or as Alexa said, she was probably going to freshen hers at some point during the day. This is my Twitter account. And I will scroll down to the last tweet that I sent out for this class and then go to latest. This was the most recent tweet that I sent out. And I did this at the end of class last Thursday to remind you. Now, I got this screenshot from Google Drive because the visuals are a little bit bigger. But just to remind you that when you go to my website, all of this is available. All of these videos are available for you to watch. You don't necessarily have to go to Blackboard. And the nice part about the Ultra videos is that they are downloadable. So after this class, once the video is processed on Ultra, I'll download it and then upload it to my website so you can watch this, or you can see what your classmates are working on in real time. You'll also note that I did it last week, the week before, assignment 6 research. Now, as we move on during the semester, I'm going to include more and more of tweets that have research for upcoming assignments or what people are working on in real time. But these are all of the tweets dating back to late August as to what we have done during the semester. But this is going to start to get exponentially larger as we continue on for the rest of the semester. And of course, that's what my website looks like when you click on it. But there's one more bit of interactivity, and that is Google Drive. When you're here, just a reminder, you can click and examine what your classmates' websites look like right now, or you can double check to examine upcoming assignments. So listening posts was due at class time today. Civics assignment 11 will be due at class time on Thursday. Now, you always have the day or a little bit longer to work on it. As long as you're not running really way behind, it's not going to affect your grade that much. But always go back in, double check your research, double check your writing, double check your editing, because all three are going to be roughly equal in terms of importance. The accuracy of everything is obviously really important. Between now and Thanksgiving break, we have roughly about 10 class periods. So by the time we get to Thanksgiving break, we'll probably be at a minimum at assignment 18, the news app critique, and then down on the bottom, the classmate blog critique, which can be of one person or a variety of students. And then the wild card is going to be due reasonably soon. So again, assignment 11, civics, will be due at class time on Thursday with the websites that we looked at from last year. You can click on Abby, which is what I did before this live class session, or you can click down on Mackenzie. Those were the two I looked at. There's a lot of good stuff here, or whether it be 2019, 2018. It really is helpful to not only watch the videos, but also take a look at all of the websites that students have worked on for different assignments, 1 through 20 in the wild card, which is the visual journalism final project. Because as I look at the calendar, it is October 19th, and we are now more than 2 weeks, I should say 2 months, it goes by that quickly, into fall 2021. So make sure that if you've got connectivity issues or anything going on in your life, because during a pandemic, it's bound to happen, make sure that you contact me to make sure that there's no misunderstanding or confusion about anything, and then send that to my Yahoo address, and hopefully things will get worked out. But we will continue with assignment 11, civics, on Thursday. Good luck with your upcoming research, and as you noticed during class, we're doing some nice work. Let's keep it up. As for MM 2003, reporting and writing for the mass media, that concludes the recording session for today.